the main goal of this chapter is to create a common chassis texture, which is something you do not do every day, even if you work within the industry. Knowing how to do this is our main goal of this chapter. We will also present the strategy for overcoming some technical challenges during the baking process, which may come in handy when you need to act in such a situation. Since we declared our main objective, let's explore the possibilities. I will start baking the hood frame first. As you might notice, the frame has double sides, however, our interest is on baking the bottom side only. For demonstration purpose, we will bake the top, then the bottom side. In order to clarify the different light behavior on both sides upon the baked map. In the top viewport, create a plane to cover the hood frame. We will use this plane to project the hood frame and bake the required maps. Since we created this plane in the top viewport, the surface of this plane will be visible only from the top, as the vertices normals are directed towards the top. In other words, the low poly visible surface must be parallel to the high poly surface to be projected. The original UV map of the plane is perfectly covering the map dimensions, and we need to keep it this way. Add projection modifier to the plane, then pick the high-resolution hood frame. Hit 0 on your keyboard to open the Texture Tools dialog, then choose Bake to Texture. During this series, we have uncovered Render to Texture. In this chapter, we will create the required maps by the new Bake to Texture utility. However, we will not uncover render surface maps in this series. Autodesk has done a great job in organizing the Bake to Texture utility. Now, we have the integration of different kind of maps within one single interface, and the ability to append visual plugin maps such as V-Ray. Most of the time, we will pick maps from the common maps list. However, we still can find and pick more maps from Bake More elements. Under Scanline Renderer, you will find most of the maps that we used to bake in the previous chapters. Pick the complete map, then press Add Maps to selected objects. This option supports single and multiple selection. I do recommend to do the test texture bake on a small image dimensions. The default output for the baked maps will be inside your project folder directory. Make sure to set your project folder correctly. Press Bake to start the baking process. This is the baking result of the hood frame top surface. As you might notice, the light and shadows are evenly distributed over the baked texture, so we got a clean result. This is also indicate that the default scene light elevation level is higher than the baked object. Let's do a bake of the bottom surface. Lower the plane level on the Z-axis until it become under the hood frame. You can either rotate the plane or flip its polygons in order to direct the visible surface towards the bottom. With the same projection modifier added to the plane object level, maximize the Bake to Texture utility window. Then bake the bottom surface of the hood frame. I am going to bake the same complete map, but with larger size. Notice how much time the render will take to complete. In comparing with the previous bake, the texture quality has been improved with higher resolution. There is also a little bit of shadows surrounding some prominence of the geometry. And the baked image is a little bit darker due to the decrease of the light intensity effect over the bottom surface. I am satisfied about the baking result. Now, we need to increase the baked image size to 4K, which is going to be the production size for this baked object. This rendering will take a long time to complete. However, there is an efficient way to bake symmetrical objects that we will do next. For symmetrical objects, we can bake only the half of those objects. The easiest way to attain this is by deleting half of the plane on the y-axis. There is a display, or an orientation difference, between the top viewport and the perspective viewport, which you need to consider. In the perspective viewport, delete the left half of the plane. Now, we can proceed with the baking process. The baking table still contains the old selected map. Even after closing the baking utility and deleting the projection modifier, which is a lag inside the application, that might lead to incorrect result if the old selected maps reused for baking. Delete the old selected maps from the baking table, then add the required maps to bake. After baking the required maps, I do recommend deleting all the maps from the baking table before closing the Bake to Texture utility. We need to bake the specular and the normal maps. You will find the specular map under the scanline renderer and the normal map under the common maps. The Add Maps to Selected Object require the plane selection with the added projection modifier in order to be enabled. You can create a queue of multiple maps, and the utility will bake them one by one. The render window is now updated to render each map, so that you can monitor the progress of each rendered map if needed. The specular map might not render correctly since we are using physical material. This is the result of the rendered specular map. The map is rendered black, as the specular color and specular map are not supported with physical material and Arnold renderer. And this is completely fine. Instead, we will bake the color map under the common maps list. This is the result of the baked normal map. The white stroking effect surrounding the baked texture can be reduced by increasing the map resolution. Again, the specular color and the specular light are not supported when using the physical material. In order to bake the specular color, you need to use standard material and scanline renderer for baking, which we have uncovered in the previous chapters. Let's bake the diffuse map and see the result. Baking the diffuse map should render only the diffuse color. Clearly, it is not supported when using physical material and Arnold renderer. The Arnold maps require the presence of Arnold physical light to be rendered correctly. We will not bake any Arnold maps in this chapter. Add and bake the color map from the common maps list. I will use the color map as specular color map. Let's do a bake for the beauty map. The beauty map is similar to the complete map. I will continue using the beauty map as well as the color map for the new bake. We will pick maps from the common maps list in this chapter for all the required maps to bake. You can add maps to the queue individually or hold Ctrl while selecting multiple maps, then add the selection to the queue. You can also change the background for each map and the baked image file format. I will use PNG with alpha or transparency for all the baked images, and this is the default settings for the baked maps. By baking half of the symmetrical geometry, not only we have decreased the baking time, but also we have optimized the 2D texture space. Here is the baking result of the beauty map, the color map, and the normal map. We will continue working on this in the subsequent movie.